BBC One's Christmas package brings you Rocky II, starring Sylvester Stallone as a battling boxer and Burgess Meredith as his elderly trainer.
Why don't you stand up and fight this guy hard?
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind marrying me very much.
Well, let's finish this fight right now.
Is he serious?
Do you have a criminal record?
Nothing worth bragging about.
This guy just don't want to win, you know. He wants to bury you. He wants to humiliate you.
You're going down.
No way.
Rocky II at 9:55 tomorrow on BBC One.
BBC Two's Rocky by Nature throughout this evening as Whistle Test steams its way from 85 to 86. In 10 minutes, television and Radio 1 combine for a simultaneous stereo broadcast of highlights of the Live Aid concert held in July. Here on BBC One in a quarter of an hour, Ian Holm and Judi Dench star in Terence Rattigan's The Browning version. First, the news with Francis Coverdale.
Winnie Mandela decides to stay out of jail for the time being. The baby food scare Salmonella is found at the factory. No New Year honour for Bob Geldof, MPs ask why. And time's running out for the boy who campaigned for kidney sufferers. In South Africa, Winnie Mandela has decided not to risk immediate rearrest. Tonight she's staying away from her home in Soweto. Earlier today, she appeared in court for breaking the government's order banning her from the area. She was released on bail. She's now staying with friends outside the Johannesburg and Soweto area. Her lawyers are trying to find a way for her to return home legally until her appeal against the banning order is heard.
It was the second time in 8 days Mrs. Mandela was brought to court for going back home to Soweto. Not much went right for the police. They couldn't close the courtroom door, so the cameramen could snatch pictures of Mrs. Mandela's latest confrontation with the state, from which she was again set free. This time, she refused to let anybody know what she would do.
I'm just going to consult with my attorneys, gentlemen. Will you just give me that opportunity, please?
In court, her lawyers said she had no home but Soweto. Her life was in danger if she went into internal exile elsewhere. The convoy took the road for Soweto, but swung off into Kagiso township, where she could legally go. It pulled up outside the home of Aubrey Mokoena, one of her oldest friends. It was to be a refuge where she and her lawyers could work out what to do next. Outside, the crowd had begun to turn into a demonstration. It wasn't long before the police arrived and a by now familiar confrontation developed.
Please wait.
Within 3 minutes, you commit a offense. Now, 2:36.
The crowd dispersed. We were arrested. There appeared no legal reason. We were eventually released. An appropriate way to end a year reporting South Africa. It's been a year of funerals. These last, the victims of the terrorist bomb last week, planted in a shopping centre outside Durban. Irma Bencini, a deeply committed Christian, had been doing her Christmas shopping. Her funeral was a sombre and moving affair, sadness and the sense of waste this sort of violence brings.
Of the Lord Jesus Christ.
And a final gesture from her husband, the blood-stained handbag she'd been carrying when she died, placed on the coffin.
And on Christmas Day, as I prayed, I felt impressed in my spirit.
More than 1,000 have died in violence here, in South Africa's worst year.
As she waits on her Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
In Beirut, 9 people are believed to have been killed in the worst fighting between rival Christian groups there for 5 years. The fighting was sparked by an assassination attempt on President Amin Gemayel. Gunmen ambushed his official motorcade in a street in northern Beirut, but he wasn't in his car at the time. 6 bodyguards were wounded in the attack, which it's thought may have been an attempt to wreck the peace agreement signed by rival Lebanese militias last Saturday. The Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev has said he wants 1986 to begin an age of peace that will last into the next century. Speaking a few minutes ago on Soviet television to mark the new year, Mr. Gorbachev said the people of the world are in one boat in the nuclear age. It would be irresponsible to rock that boat. Tomorrow he'll broadcast on American television while Mr. Reagan addresses the Russians in a unique exchange to mark the new relationship between the superpowers. The baby food manufacturers Farley's confirmed tonight that traces of salmonella have been found in their factory in Kendal. Government scientists have been carrying out tests there after an outbreak of food poisoning among young babies. Earlier this month, Farley's agreed to withdraw 3 of their brands from the shops.
Laboratory tests by public health technicians found traces of salmonella in dust taken from a cleaning machine at Farley's Kendal factory. The plant's been shut down since the outbreak began, and exhaustive tests have been carried out on all the staff and equipment there. No salmonella bacteria has yet been found in any Farley product, although the companies say it will be some time before they reopen the factory. Farley's Osterfeed and Ostermilk brands have been withdrawn, as well as the Complan milk diet. It's thought a quarter of all bottle-fed babies in Britain use these foods. Since November, 43 babies have been taken ill with salmonella poisoning, and 1 has died. Farley's still don't know how salmonella got into their factory.
We actually carry out thousands of tests a year and spend about £1 million a year on quality control, and at this stage we believe this is a freak incident.
What do you intend doing about the situation at your factory now?
Well, we're working 24 hours a day with the Department of Health at the moment in the factory, and looking for ways to make sure that we eliminate this happening again.
The bacteria has only been found at Farley's factory at Kendal in Cumbria. Since the outbreak of salmonella poisoning, several thousand tons of the company's products have been destroyed.
More than 200 Ulster Unionist supporters have left Londonderry on a protest march against the new Anglo-Irish agreement. At their head, most of the 15 Unionist MPs who resigned their seats at Westminster to fight by-elections on the issue. This is seen as a curtain raiser to their campaign, 5 days of marching the 80 or so miles to Belfast for a rally there on Saturday. The European consortium planning a rescue package for Westland helicopters has warned the company against a rival bid from the American firm Sikorsky. Members of the European consortium met in London today to finalise their offer to Westland shareholders. They're backed by the Defence Secretary Michael Heseltine, who's reported to be ready to stake his job on the success of the European bid.
The letter for Westland shareholders was drawn up in London, but it was the Europeans, French, Italians and Germans, who insisted on a get tough paragraph, warning that if Westland went with the Americans, they couldn't expect to share in European projects.
Well, what they are saying, and the paragraph which we put in, is just to make it abundantly clear that if the UTC proposal goes ahead, as far as they are concerned, Westland will not participate with them in the NH-90, that's the medium-sized helicopter, nor the battlefield helicopter, which are the 2 key helicopters for the 1990s.
And that is something which has come again today strongly from the Europeans.
It has indeed, yes. What they feel in actual fact is that you can't have Westland sitting in both camps. They can't be on both sides. They've got to make up their mind which side they wish to be on.
Tonight, the European consortium appear to believe that their offer will be much more attractive to the shareholders, provided, that is, they have a chance to study it in detail, which is why, in the letter going tonight to Westland, they've asked for the extraordinary general meeting in 2 weeks' time to be adjourned to give shareholders longer to consider.
Politicians and aid workers have been asking why Bob Geldof's name wasn't among the 650 published in today's New Year Honours list. The word from Downing Street this evening is that the honours are given for services to Britain and the Commonwealth. Bob Geldof's fundraising for Africa wouldn't normally qualify. But some opposition MPs aren't satisfied and are contrasting it with the honour given to Gordon Rees, the man who advised Mrs Thatcher on her public image.
Gordon Rees, who helped Mrs Thatcher win 2 general elections, is rewarded with a knighthood. A former publicity director at Conservative Central Office, he's credited with creating the new Thatcher image, the softer hairstyle and lower voice. But Labour MP Robin Cook has described the award as an outrage.
All he has done is groom Mrs Thatcher for the television cameras. Now, that may have been politically useful to Mrs. Thatcher, but it wasn't a political service to the nation, and Mrs. Thatcher should learn the distinction.
Others are angry that Bob Geldof, who created Band-Aid and Live Aid, is absent from the honours list. The Liberal leader, David Steele, said he was very surprised Geldof had been left out. Perhaps he ruffled too many feathers, he said. Bob Geldof's efforts have raised £16 million for the starving in Africa. Downing Street have made it clear that New Year honours go to those who help Britain and the Commonwealth, rather than other countries. They say this year's honours are solid and traditional. Awards go to 5 heroes of the fire at the Bradford City football ground, in which 56 people died. They include a British Empire Medal for Joseph Grieg, a fireman who, despite broken ribs, continued his efforts to rescue those trapped by the flames. And there's an OBE for David Sharp, the plastic surgeon who led a team treating scores of spectators who'd suffered severe burns. The only new life peer is Sir Frederick Dainton, Chancellor of Sheffield University and a world-famous scientist. In the world of entertainment, the actress and comedienne Beryl Reid is awarded an OBE. And the opera singer Gwyneth Jones is made a Dame of the British Empire. There are some famous sporting names too. England and Southampton goalkeeper Peter Shilton gets an MBE. So does John Frankham, the most successful jockey in National Hunt racing, who retired this year. The athlete Steve Cram this summer broke